We're going to look at bones. So why have I drawn a picture of the sun? Any guesses? The ultraviolet rays from the sun hit the skin. Notice that? They have to actually touch the skin. But the rays that touch the skin that are pivotal in making vitamin D are UVB rays. And UVB rays do not come through glass. UVA rays come through glass, but it's the UVB rays that we want. When the ultraviolet rays from the sun, particularly the UVB, hit the skin, they convert a form of cholesterol just under the skin. Did everyone hear that one? A form of what? Cholesterol. Do you know what Dr. Malcolm Kendrick said in his book, The Great Cholesterol Con? And he's a cardiovascular surgeon, by the way. He said, for the first time, normal levels of a normal vital body substance is being called a disease. Ultraviolet rays, particularly UVB, from the sun hit a form of cholesterol just under the skin and convert it to vitamin D. And vitamin D is essential for the assimilation of calcium. And calcium is a very important part of the body. In fact, calcium is a very important part of the whole of life on planet Earth, and it's called the king. And because it's called the king, it's been misunderstood. Calcium's the king because when it gets in, all the other minerals piggyback on the back. And I've got some news for you. You might find it shocking news. Bones aren't made of calcium. Bones are made of 12 trace minerals and 64 minor minerals. So what are the 12? Calcium, boron, chromium, iron, magnesium, and manganese, and selenium, and silica, and sulfur, and potassium, and phosphorus, and zinc, and 64 trace, meaning 64 minor minerals. Now, understanding this, it's not rocket science, but what do bones need, students? Do they need calcium? Not by itself. So I've got some good news. You can save money by not buying any more calcium supplements. And the money you save, you can buy something that is one of the best ways to get salt into your body, or the minerals, which is Celtic salt. Or it's getting hard to get, and apparently it's my fault, so you can get Baja salt is another one that's very, very similar. Celtic salt is hand harvested from Brittany on the French coast. Very pristine part of France. In fact, the French government have declared it a heritage zone so that it can never be contaminated. 4.5 million acres. That's incredible. The Baja salt is on another pristine place in Mexico, and it's a hand-harvested sea salt as well. And because it's a hand-harvested sea salt, they retain the minerals. In fact, they retain approximately between 82 and 84 of the minerals. In seawater, there's approximately 92 minerals. So where are the rest? Well, that last 10 are in such tiny proportions, pico amounts. A pico is a measurement that's barely measurable, that it's inevitable that some of them are lost in the process of of harvesting the salt. And the book that I read about the Celtic salt in Brittany, they've got peninsulas like this, and the salt flats basically are like this, and the wind, it comes across these areas, so the salt is dried very quickly. And because it's dried very quickly, there are a lot of mineral gases locked up in the crystal. So I prefer to buy my salt as crystals. And in that crystal are trace amounts, part per million amounts of iodine. Now, when the seas crash, the iodine goes up into suspension and settles on the land. And that's why the vegetables grown on the coast have a higher iodine level. Vegetables grown right inland, almost no iodine. And if you buy iodized salt, you're buying 3 minerals: sodium, chloride, and iodine. And within about, is estimated, 2 hours of opening it, all the iodine is lost. But when you buy the Celtic salt or the Baja salt, it's locked up in the gases. If you take iodine, it's out of your body in 20 minutes. But if you take that little crystal of Celtic salt before every glass of water, you're giving part per million minor amounts of iodine, but little by little by little. That is the best way to take iodine into the body. And iodine is the main food used by the thyroid gland. So that's an interesting piece of information that I wanted to share with you while I share about how we get minerals into the bones, because bones are not made of minerals. Sorry, not a calcium, they're made of minerals. They're made of this balance. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 13, the Bible says, "Ye are the salt of the earth. If the salt has lost its savour, wherewith shall it be salted? It is henceforth good for nothing but to be cast out and trodden under foot of men." Old English. How does the salt lose its savour? I'd like to suggest that refined salt, with its 2 minerals, has lost its savour. It's lost all the other minerals. What does the Bible say now? It's now good for nothing but to be cast out and trodden under foot of men. And I thought of that when I was up in Minneapolis and saw them throwing salt on the road to melt the ice. 80% of the industrialized salt goes to industry, 20% goes to humans, and that's the refined salt. You see, of those 92 minerals, 30% is sodium, and approximately 50% is chloride. And because these are the first crystals formed, they're the first ones scooped up. Then they're bleached white, aluminium's put with it, there's your table salt. Now, to make seawater, you use a teaspoon of salt to a cup of water. Let's say a person makes a whole tank of seawater using this sodium chloride and water, and then they get fish from the sea and put it in that tank, all the fish die. And yet people take it. We need salt in its balanced form, and in its balanced form is as these two. Himalayan salt is not quite as good as these two, but it's still pretty good. It has 75 minerals. It's better than your refined salt. And so even though you might find these salts a little expensive, when you consider what they're giving to you, it's a blessing. So where else do we get those minerals? From dark green leafy vegetables. And dark green leafy vegetables are very high in these minerals. But to get all the minerals that we need, it's important that they be organic, because remember, the organic farmer, he works with the soil. And he works with the soil by encouraging the microorganisms in the soil. And it's the microorganisms in the soil that release the minerals from the dirt into the plant. That's why organic fruits and vegetables have a far higher nutrient content. So our skin needs to get the sun for our bones. because our bones need this vitamin D to be able to access particularly calcium, and when calcium gets in, all the other minerals are coming in as well. Now, the only exposed bone in the body are your teeth. That's right, your teeth. And how many people spend a fortune on their teeth? When my children were between the ages of, I think, the youngest was about 5 and Emma, she's my eldest, she was about 16, I took them to the dentist. I thought maybe I should have the dentist look at their teeth. And the dentist said, "Your children's teeth astonish me." I said, "Oh?" She said, "There is no decay. They are strong. One child has a little bit of decay where it's the way the teeth close together, the food gets stuck. But," he said, "the teeth are so strong that the decay was arrested. And I did not give the children cow's milk." Cows get their minerals for their strong bones where? Grass. I've got some good news. You don't have to eat grass, but you can eat microgreens. You can eat kale. You can eat spinach, silver. And now, would you consider here down south, Tennessee? So you've got two things we don't have: lamb's quarters and collard greens. Is that what you have? Yeah, we never heard of those things, but I have to tell you, I love them. And the good news is that when you cook the greens, you don't lose the minerals. Some people say, what about the oxalic acid? You know, it's more to do when a person's eating a high acid diet. And in my book, Self-Heal by Design, there's a chapter on the acid-alkaline balance in there. So let me tell you a little bit more about the sun while we're here. Eyes. Eyes need sun because eyes bring sun through to the brain. And the brain needs sun. The ultraviolet rays from the sun go through neurochemical pathways, hit your pituitary gland, and that helps to bring balance back into the hormones. So that's where we again are looking at those 8 laws or 8 doctors of health or 8 laws of life. Also, Dr. Neil Nedley shows this, that when we're out in the sun, I don't suggest you look at the sun. Our eyes will tell us not to do that. But when you're outside in the sun, the rays are coming through, they're going through neurochemical pathways, hitting your pineal gland and helping you to sleep better at night. And they're also causing a release of serotonin, that's your mood hormone. So when I come from Australia to America, it's a big change. You see, Australia is probably just waking up now. So when I come over here, it's a huge change. And a lot of people suffer from jet lag, yeah? Well, the last time I came over, only one night. One night I woke up at 2 a.m. and I was bright-eyed for the day. And you know what I noticed? The 2 days before, it was raining all day. And the third day, the sun came out. So I sat in the sun. And I sat in the sun for probably 3 periods through the day, about 5 minutes at a time. And that night I slept, and every other night I slept. I have found that when I can get outside and let the sun's rays come in through my eyes, it resets my body clock. And Dr. Neil Nedley, in his book, Depression: A Way Out, he claims that 80% of his depressed patients, their circadian rhythm is out. You've heard of the circadian rhythm? It's the rhythm that our brain runs at. And he found that the first hour of light in a day reset the circadian rhythm. So we've been scared away from the sun, but the sun is very, very important. You can overdo the sun and you can underdo the sun. And the figures, Wishart, there's a book, his name's Wishart. He's written a couple of books on vitamin D. And he gives a story about, I think it was in Norway, late 90s to early 2000, skin cancer rates rose about 200%. So they looked at how this could be, and they discovered 2 things. Norwegians are spending more time indoors. And when they're outdoors, they use sunscreens. And yet, what are we told? If you go out in the sun, you've got to have sunscreen on. And yet, sunscreen effectively blocks UVB rays. Yes, you can overdo the sun, you can underdo the sun. Now, when you've got milky skin like me, apparently that's what my skin's called, milky skin, and blue eyes, you have to be a little bit cautious. So when I go out in the sun, if I'm on holidays, and sometimes we do have a holiday, I take my watch. 15 minutes front, 15 minutes back under the umbrella, morning and night. Within about 5 days, I've got a very nice tan. And you know what sort of tan I've got? UVB tan. And I can test that, and 3-4 months later, I've still got that tan, even if I don't go in the sun much. And that tan is your best protection against the sun, because once you've got that tan, you can bear more sun. If you have dark skin, the really dark skin needs about 10 times the sun that I need. And by the way, it takes 10 times more for them to burn, doesn't it? But you can get a dark-skinned person that never goes in the sun for, say, 6 months, then goes and spends half an hour in the sun, they can get burnt. They can still get burnt. So it's common sense, really, isn't it? A little bit of caution is necessary there. They're finding now that vitamin D deficiency is a big contributing factor with skin cancer. Poor old sun has been blamed for all the problems, but it's really the way you use the sun. In Australia, in the schools, they have huge shade cloths over the playgrounds. Children aren't allowed to go outside unless they've got hats on. And they've got a program called Slip, Slop, Slap. It's on the television all the time. It's on the side of the road. Slip, slop, slap, which is slip a top on, slap a hat on, and slop the sunscreen on. It's probably Aussie terminology. Has that reduced skin cancer? No, not at all, because skin cancer is more dehydrated skin. It's more that people are eating devitalized food. Margarine, that altered toxic fat, when it comes out on the skin and the combination with the sun, it can be a contributing factor to damaging the skin. 6 to 7 sunburns in your lifetime can double the risk of skin cancer. So please don't be scared of the sun. We need it for our vitamin D. We only need half an hour a day. So that's my 15 minutes front, 15 minutes back to get all the vitamin D that you need for the day. But it takes 2 hours for your skin to produce the vitamin D. So if I go out in the sun and then go to my room and have a shower with soap, I will not get any vitamin D, because it's that fatty substance, the cholesterol, that's used to make it. But if I'm out in the sun, I get hot and I dive in the ocean, that's not going to take it away. Or I dive in the river, that won't take it away. But if I dive into the chlorinated pool, yes, that will interfere with the production of vitamin D. If I have a shower and wash my whole body with soap and then lie in the sun, I won't get any vitamin D. So there are a few things that are necessary to be able to make vitamin D. So let's get back to the importance of looking after the bones. So let's go through those laws of health. Number 1, pure air. Yes, every skin cell requires oxygen for it to function effectively, and we get it through pure air, which is breathing through the nose. Sunshine. I trust I have given you enough evidence to show the importance of having sunshine as much as possible. If you're not used to the sun, go cautiously. But we need a little bit of sun as often as possible. Number 3 law is temperance. Temperance is not taking anything into the body that will harm it, and taking in moderation the good things. So let me give you a list of things that are leaching minerals out of the body. Yes, it's one thing to put the minerals in the body. It's another thing to maintain your minerals by not taking things that are taking them out. And you might remember back to when we talked about the DNA, we talked about how the refined sugar leaches especially the calcium and the magnesium. And this is also very important for heart function. Calcium causes the heart to constrict, magnesium relax. Calcium constrict, magnesium relax. So the beating of the heart requires this nice balance of minerals to be taken into the body. There's no need to take refined sugar because we've got maple syrup, we've got honey. I think I heard Emma talk about a few sweeteners. There's so many sweeteners that there's no need to go to the refined sugar. Caffeine, called Australia's darling. I think it's America's darling too. It is also a big leacher of minerals, especially the calcium and magnesium. So when people are having these every day, and many do, and if you are a coffee drinker, please don't stop. You didn't think I'd say that, did you? Because you'll suffer. But in the book Caffeine Blues, Kachansky has a chapter called Coming Off the Bean. And he says, if you have 3 cups of coffee a day, start having 3 cups of coffee, but instead of a 1 teaspoon of coffee, you put half a teaspoon of coffee and half a teaspoon of something like Roma or Cafex. It won't taste any different, and your body will still be getting that little bit of caffeine. And every day, a little less coffee, a little more Roma or Cafex. And within a week, you can be off the coffee without any pain or suffering. Because we see it all the time at our retreat. One lady, she couldn't even get out of bed. Her headache was so bad. 1 cup of coffee a day. That's why when people say, do you drink coffee? I say, no, I just watch the people suffer. Day 1 at our retreats. That's enough for me. So you can get off the coffee without pain and suffering by doing that. Alcohol is another leacher of minerals, and one of the reasons why the calcium is probably the one that is taken out more than any other is because it is the most alkaline mineral. And a lot of these have an acid effect on the body. So to quickly calm that down, the body's pulling that calcium out of the bones in a form of calcium phosphate. And so we get this constant leaching. So the bones are getting thinner and thinner. Tobacco is the other one, which it has apparently, it is estimated 4,000 chemicals in cigarette smoke. And sorry, vaping is no better. Vaping is, in some ways, it's even worse. And that's where this third law plays an important role in keeping the bones strong. Another thing, and you'll find a chapter on this in my book, is acid-forming foods. And I've listed all the acid-forming foods in the book. And again, the acid-forming foods, to cope with that, the body leaches the calcium out. And that's meat, wheat, refined sugar, the things that I've just listed, drugs. And anyone who's been on steroid drugs, that really takes it out of the bones. It's a big bone leacher. If anyone is on prednisone or cortisone, it's important not to stop that. But little by little, that can be eased off. Sometimes just dropping a few milligrams every month, that can, because if you stop that immediately, you'll have a crisis response in your body. So it's important to take that one down very slowly. Soda drinks. Soda drinks have phosphoric acid in it, and that leaches the minerals out of the bones. So the soda drinks really have to be stopped. Number 4, looking at how all this plays a role in our bones. Number 4 is rest. Rest is a very important part of life. Must be a balance between rest and work. Remember the perfect mathematical formula? 8 hours to work, 8 hours to play, 8 hours to sleep. And in my last lecture tonight, my next lecture after our supper, I'll be looking at that in detail. But the bones need rest. They need to be fully rested and revived every night. And a lot of bones aren't getting that. And the best exercise for strengthening the bones is rebounding. Strength comes by exercise. There's no other way. We often, we know that about muscles, and we often only refer to muscles, but bones are also strengthened by exercise. And the bone strengthening exercise that is more effective than any other is rebounding. That's why best exercise for kids, get a trampoline. And if they've got a spare moment, where are they? On the trampoline. I've come to the conclusions people get old because they stop jumping. And that jumping is constantly going against gravity. And that's why it's such a powerful form of exercise. I read a book by Albert Carter, and he was I think it was an Olympian trampolinist, and he wanted to know why it had such an effect. And the only place he could find in the 1980s, 90s that did research on it was NASA. And NASA found it was the only form of exercise that prepared their astronauts for outer space, because in outer space, there's no gravity. And they found when their astronauts came back, sometimes they'd suffered 25% bone and muscle loss. That's a lot. So they discovered that trampolining before, they didn't lose as much, and trampolining when they got back restored them quicker than any other form of exercise. And if you're not used to the rebounder, which is a little trampoline, remember, just start with a health bounce. And if your balance isn't good, the rebounder will restore your balance, because our balance is set by the bottom of our feet and the fine mechanisms in our ear. And what rebounding does is it resets that. One lady said, well, every time I try and rebound, I lose a bit of urine. I said, well, empty your bladder before you get on. That's the best way, because that's the very exercise that will help strengthen your pelvic girdle and will also strengthen your urethral muscle, which sits inside your pelvic girdle. And I think I heard my daughter giving some very colourful descriptions on how to strengthen such things. So that's the best bone strengthening exercise. And the little rebounder is easy. A lady said, well, I won't buy one. We've got a trampoline. I said, yeah, but you'll never go out there. Have you noticed? You're gonna. In fact, that's real Australian, isn't it? We're gonna go out there, but you actually don't go out there. But if you've got a little rebounder, and you've got to make an appointment with yourself, if you don't make an appointment with exercise, you will not exercise. And remember, when we looked at our immune system, we looked at where our red and white blood cells are made. Where are they made? Bone marrow, in the bone marrow. And so strengthening the bones strengthens your body's ability to make your red and white blood cells. But there's something more potent. I talked about it, to boost your immune system. What's the best immune system booster? Students? You'll scream. The cold water. Yep. Well, I've got some good news that Sylvia and Amanda, they joined me this morning into the gorge. Into the gorge. Emma's coming too. But that quick cold. Yeah, it's a big lake. We'll all fit. That. I don't know where, it's in a park somewhere. It's down there, down that away. Sylvia knows. Dan knows. I was so excited when I arrived and we went for a walk. I thought, water to jump in the morning. Then they took me at the gorge and I thought, oh, that's even better, because there are little rocks. You want to be able to step out and dry yourself and put your shoes and socks back on, because that's an important part of it, is getting dressed quickly. But that cold gives such an incredible boost to your immune system, but also a boost to your bone marrow, and in your bone marrow, the making of your blood, so every single cell in the body is affected by rebounding. Every single cell in the body is affected by that quick cold. And as I said to the ladies, you can ask them, it's like you get an injection of power. It's just feels very good. If you can't quite get to the gorge, all you have to do is to turn your tap, and I know now that side's hot, right over as far as it'll go. And then warn the neighbours that some screaming might come out of your bathroom window. But you get used to it. You get used to it. So 6 is proper diet. When I was a little girl, we used to have a glass of milk in recess. All school children had to have a little bottle of milk. I hated it. It used to make me feel ill. I know now that I have a intolerance to dairy. And why did they give it to the school children? To strengthen their bones. But it's actually a fallacy. Let me show you. A glass of milk. Here's a glass of milk. And a glass of milk is high in calcium, yes. But those cows, they got 5 stomachs to be able to access that calcium. So it's not in a form easy for us to access. But that glass of milk is also very high in protein. And this is animal protein, and only 58% of that animal protein is burnt as fuel. So what that leaves is a 42% waste. And this waste is a high sulfur waste, which is very acidic. And what does the body use to negate acid? Calcium. So actually, do you know how much calcium is left for our body from a glass of milk? None. And the countries in this world, which are the highest dairy consumers, have the highest incidence of osteoporosis. And so the reason why my children used to fall out of Tarzan vines, Emma was a real tomboy. She would climb the trees, the horses, they'd fall off horses. No broken bones. No broken bones. I took them to the dentist. The teeth are all perfect, and yet I didn't give them cow's milk. But every day we ate a lot of dark green leafy vegetables straight from our garden. And we fed the garden so that it was well nourished with compost. And the countries in this world with the strongest bones, let's have a look at the Hunzas in the Himalayan mountains. They don't have hospitals, they don't have doctors, they don't have nurses, they don't even have jails. And they eat food in its natural state. They eat a lot of greens, they have a little bit of sheep yogurt, and they have meat maybe 3 times a year on festive occasions, but their bones are strong. And this is where the game polo came from, is from the Hunzas. So sometimes the over 50s pay the under 50s, and sometimes the over 50s win. Sometimes they fall off horses, but the bones are so strong that if there is a little bit of a crack, it heals very quickly. So it's not from cow's milk, it's actually a misconception, as I just showed you. So we get our minerals from our foods, and the organic foods are a very high source, but as I showed you, many people are losing their minerals because of a high acid, high refined diet and high stimulating diet. Number 7 is use of water. Doesn't seem like our bones need water, but they do, because the blood feeds the bones and blood needs water. Also, the alternating hot and colds, or the cold plunges, do a wonderful stimulating effect to bones. And the last law is trust in divine power. Stress, complicates every disease. And there's a lovely verse, and you might know it because it's often quoted. It's found in Proverbs chapter 3, 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Lean not on thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear the Lord, and depart from evil. And it shall be strength to thy navel, marrow to thy bones. So to strengthen the bones, what have we got to do? Trust in God. Worry weakens the body in every single way, and the bones are no exception. So now you know how to strengthen your bones. And isn't it good to know that everything that I've showed you here this afternoon is within every single person's reach? So please strengthen your bones.